for waiting while we did the very important test run as we begin the very critical conversation on Anambra 2024, the prospects, the progress, and of course the plans by a very strategic agency of the Anambra State government, the Anambra State Investment, Promotion and Protection Agency, ANSIPPA. My name is Ifi Aronwo-Okafor. I welcome you specially. Thank you so much for joining us, for being here today. It's very important for us to note that economic transformation and infrastructure is one of the 5 pillars of the Soludo administration. Now, Professor Chukwuma Soludo came in with 3 working documents, and they include the People's Manifesto, the Vision 2070 report, and the Transition Committee report. Our focus today is primarily on the People's Manifesto and, of course, the Vision 2070 report, because that is a document that envisions Anambra State by the next half of a century, telling us where we are going and the fact that we need to prepare for the future that we want and the ideal Anambra that we all desire. Now, Professor Soludo is also a man that will always talk about the need for us to prepare for more development and to catch up with a fast evolving and developing world. So where does ANSIPPA stand in the context of all of this? How central are some of the activities that ANSIPPA is carrying out? And how is ANSIPPA driving the People's Manifesto and seeing to it that Anambra State becomes the dream state that we all desire? So that is why we are here today to talk about 2024 and what will be done in the course of the year. So today the spotlight is officially on ANSIPPA, and I am joined by the man who steers the wheels, who drives the course of things here at ANSIPPA. He is someone who has, over the past year, been doing lots of public engagement. So today is just for us to catch up on what has been done so far and also to set agenda for the year. So I have with me the indefatigable and youthful MD CEO of ANSIPPA, Mr. Mark Okoye. It's good to have you this evening, sir.
Thank you very much, Ifi. Always a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Now, he needs no introduction. You can look through his LinkedIn, his Instagram, his social media platforms to catch up, just in case you're joining ANSIPPA public engagement session for the very first time. Now, let us talk about how it has been, because you've been in office for the past 14 months. Congratulations, so far, so good. And it's a new year. Happy New Year.
Same to you.
Okay, so now government is a continuum, and you met certain things on ground. A lot has happened in the course of the past year. What was the state of things in ANSIPPA and by extension, the Anambra investment system as a whole, and the solution mandate for the agency that you're piloting? I mean, just oppose the state of things where you came in and what you began to do based on the template that you had.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ifi. And nice to meet everyone who can see us and who's signing in. It's a pleasure to be here and for you all to join in to sort of be part of the ANSIPPA story, which by extension is the Anambra story.
Absolutely.
Before I dive into ANSIPPA, I think it's important to contextualize it. Essentially, let people understand where ANSIPPA, the role ANSIPPA plays in achieving what the governor is trying to do. For many of you who've been following the stories and the timeline of events, the governor, Professor Chukwuma Charles Soludo, he came on board in March, and he had a very, very clear understanding of what he wants to achieve, what he wants his administration to achieve. And the vision is very simple and straightforward. It is to become the preferred location to live, work, learn, relax, and enjoy. And this essentially, if I like to sort of frame it with a phrase that he usually uses, which is, I want to transform Anambra State from a departure lounge to a destination. I want Anambra State to become Nigeria's most industrialized tech savvy, and prosperous sort of city, smart megacity state. And he's doing this across about 5 major pillars. The first being obviously security, law and order. The second being economic transformation and infrastructure development. The third being the social agenda. The fourth is rule of law and governance. And lastly is the environment. So there are a number of, so every time you sort of hear an Anambra State government official or the governor or anybody who works with us speak, all of their activities fit within any of these boxes, or when you see cross-ministerial sort of engagements, and then you're tapping into one or two of those boxes. So where does ANSIPPA fit? ANSIPPA essentially fits in, the new ANSIPPA fits in the economic transformation and the infrastructure bit of the plan. And what did we make when we came in? This agency is 10 years, will be 10 years in April this year.
Interesting.
Right? It was essentially set up to see how we could drive investments into Anambra State and have that agency that works closely with the private sector. But over the years, I would say the first 8.5 years of the agency is focused mainly on hand-holding investors when they come in, and there wasn't quite a lot of marketing, reaching out. And this, you could say, was for many reasons. There's been strategy documents, what we call ourselves now. We call it, we're in the ANSIPPA 3.0 phase. So there was an ANSIPPA 1.0, there was an ANSIPPA 2.0. I happened to be part and parcel, maybe for the first 9 months of the ANSIPPA 1.0. But at the time, it was more an organization that sat back in Oka, was a one-stop shop, and investors, when they were here, or aspiring investors, would come in and be able to sort of engage. If they had PPP initiatives where they could partner with the private sector and the public sector, it would be structured here. But it's all well and good. There are a few things that have been done well. The Oka Millennium City, Linden Farms in Ibariam, and Koshai's farms here and there. But that's, if you put it within the context of ANSIPPA compared to other IPAs across the country, you could say they've done pretty well, pretty okay. But if you compare it with the true potential of Indianambra, the potential of what Indianambra stand for, in terms of the excellence across critical sectors, the resourceful, huge data diaspora sort of resource that we have, what we do in the areas of commerce, you would see that there could be a bit more if the government if the government's agenda was properly structured to tap into those resources. So essentially, in Mr. Governor's manifesto, this is a 4-point plan for ANSIPPA. He says, number 1, I want to reposition ANSIPPA, right, and turn it into an investment-focused development corporation that would then go ahead to, rather than sit back and wait for projects to come and have those projects drive the development agenda of the state. ANSIPPA's role now is to identify, the manifesto is very clear on the projects that Mr. Governor promises in Indianambra, and a new industrial city, a new capital, right? A new Onitsha, right? New sustainable and green cities, multimodal infrastructure, transportation infrastructure, connecting major cities. So all of these projects, you can't sit back and say, I want these projects to happen.
We'll talk about the Anambra Investment Summit in a short time. But just in case you have questions, please start dropping them. I see that some of us are already making use of the comment section. Please drop your questions so that once we're done with what we have on the lineup, which will be very shortly, we'll start taking questions. What are the MOU signed? How far so far?
Yeah, so I think it's clearly one of the most successful events ever held in the Southeast, if you ask me. I think for many years, the state has preached investments, right? But I think the key thing here was being able to put it all together in such a concise way, attract the world, let them showcase those opportunities, and get people to express interest, right? But most people think that the event was just one day. I agree, it was about a day and a half, right? But for us to have achieved that, it took months and months of planning.
Planning,
right? Planning in terms of the location, the people, the experience, the right mix, right? But also the projects, the policies, and the partnerships, right? So in the summary, that event attracted about 3,000 physical attendees. Of the 3,000, it will surprise you that 220 people flew in from the diaspora, just based on the invitations. We have the data. People came in from the US, people came in from the UK, people came in from Asia. Many of them, of course, from Anambra, but it surprised you. Quite a number of them are internationals, Caucasians, coming in from America in search of opportunities. We asked them, how did you find out? They said they followed they subscribed to the Anambra Insights, our newsletter. And that's how they saw it. They saw the invitation. They've been following the story, right? So about 3,000 people, of which just under 10% were from the diaspora, right? The international diaspora. There were about 80,000 virtual sign-ins. People who came on, who watched it on our Rise, on channels, on Afia TV. In terms of expression, there are about 20 projects being developed and structured and conceptualized by the state government across different ministries that were showcased. And then another 20 different companies also wanted to sort of showcase their products at the summit, right? In terms of international development organizations, you had everybody from AFDB, African Development Bank, the Afrexim, the World Bank, about 7 United Nations agencies, 10 different federal government agencies, NEPSA, Export. So everybody who was there that sort of, and to achieve that, we worked closely with these people because we're already working with a lot of them on projects, right? But the biggest takeaways are 3 things. Number 1 are the MOU signed. They're not just paper documents. One of the MOUs is the Oka Shopping Mall. If you follow our Instagram, our social medias, you would see that the C of O was handed over to the investor. The investor is someone who's known to everybody. If you know Market Square, the group, they're called Sundry Markets. They own Market Square, they own Kilimanjaro, right? All of them, they're moving to site in about 3 weeks. The second was GVE, the solar independent power project company, right? They've taken Wuse Market in Abuja. The famous Wuse Market is gone completely off grid. That's one of their initiatives. They have over 7 megawatts under, they're currently producing 7 megawatts across over 20 projects in West Africa. The CEO is a young man, about 37, from Anambra. He's now heeded to the governor's advice to come home. And he's taking a good part of Anambra West completely offline, off-grid, and providing them uninterrupted power supply. The public-private partnership, community partnership with NENI, this is an initiative, the PPCP, that has been created by the Anambra State government. It's a brainchild of the governor. Because we have the spending of our budget. Our budget only accounts for roughly around 1.8 to 2% of the GDP of the state, right? The remaining 98% is in the hands of India Anambra. So how can we work in isolation? So the whole tenet of the PPCP is one where how can we use our 2% and attract significant funding to address critical social sectors. So you see things like water, you see things like community roads, you see things like healthcare. So the first initiative we tested out was the NENI water scheme. So that was one. At the same summit, we engaged Atilia, formerly called Mahindra, to design a full-on master plan for the Anambra Industrial City that will be coming up in Oboji in the Orumba area. We also engaged CPCS, Transcom, to design a intra-city rail master plan for the state. But most importantly, the question is you have all these plans coming up, you have all these master plans being done, how do you actualize it? You only actualize it when you can see line of sight to financing. So that was the role the Afrexim played at the event. We signed a commitment to provide a framework for up to $250 million in funding, debt funding for a number of our projects, and potentially another $150 to $200 million. They believe that we could do a diaspora bond or a diaspora fund that can attract funding from the Anambra diaspora around the world in a structured way into some of all these projects. Because when you think about a project, it has an equity side and it has a debt side. So assuming the funding from Afro-Exim comes into the debt side, Afro-Exim and its affiliates, right, comes into the debt. The remaining 20%, 30%, which is equity, government in all situations does not have the money to do that because they are funding education and all the other sectors. But these are opportunities where people will make money, right? So what we're saying with the diaspora fund is how can we take that equity portion and break it into, piece it into little shares and sell it to Indian Anambra.
Interesting.
For them to come and crowdfund and support this project. Wouldn't you be happy to own 0.001% in the Anambra Bus Company?
Please, when can I get on board?
But that's essentially what we're doing. Okay. So I like to say the event was extremely successful. But for us, we see that event as that annual event where we used to showcase what we've been working on, showcase the opportunities, bring investors into Anambra to see what the governor and the government is doing, and then brainstorm on new opportunities on how we can sort of advance the Anambra agenda.
Okay, you said it's an annual event.
Yes.
You gave an indication, but I want you to be concrete. Are we having an Anambra Investment Summit in 2024? Are there plans for that?
Yes, there are plans for that, and it is an annual event. Okay. What you came for last year was the maiden edition, and we're hoping that it will continue to get better and better and better. But yes, there will be one this year. We're hoping, and I say we're hoping because I still fall within the framework of the government. I have a boss that I report to. And we've made a proposal to him that we want to hold it between the 5th and the 7th of September.
Oh, okay, same month.
Yes, same month.
Okay.
We like that it allows us come into the year, spend the next, first 6 months really pushing ourselves to ensure that we're making immense progress on all of these projects, right? Such that when we are getting to the summit, the last 2 to 3 months is really just working with the event planners, working with the other MDAs to ensure that everything is intact and that we're going to bring everyone around the world into Anambra in a safe and secure manner, and then leverage that summit platform as one to showcase those opportunities so that we can have proper deal making at those events. The structure and the format will slightly change because last year was the maiden. Now in this one, we must start with a report saying all of the things we've signed, where are we on all of those things? Which ones have been completed? Which one is at 70% completion? Which one is at 80%? Which one is having challenges of execution? Because it is not perfect. Yes. Deal making, the work of government is not easy. If the work of government is easy, there won't be need for government, right? You will just be able to design some AI platform that runs government for you. So we'll use that platform to first of all give that report. Okay. And the second aspect of that event will obviously be to showcase the projects that we're working on this year to the people and make those big announcements. And thirdly is to brainstorm on new areas because we're not perfect. We're administrators, right? We don't own all the ideas. The ideas come from people in the private sector, people who have major stakeholders across different sectors. So we want to leverage that to brainstorm and then agree on sort of what the roadmap for the next 12 months will be after that.
Okay. Now, you've given us an indication now that is one of the prime objectives that you have. To run, so that there's a lot to report.
Yes.
Because now there's a target that in September you give us a termly report of what has happened over the course of the year. Now, where does the indigenous investor fall in the line of all that ANSIPPA is doing? I mean, those who are not from outside, yes. I mean, what's the engagement like so far? How are they being involved in this investment drive, maybe to delve into other areas and all of that?
No, it's a very good point. I think the Anambra State Investment Summit, right, of the 3,000 people, the data we have, only 800 people, 850 people flew in.
Okay.
2,200 people are domestic, people who are here. Okay. In the build-up to that, we held extensive sessions with internal stakeholders, other ministries, right? Held sessions with the local government system, held sessions with the Chambers of Commerce, held sessions with the Manufacturers Association. What were these sessions for? It wasn't really to showcase opportunities. It was to let them know how the new ANSIPPA wants to operate and some of what we're working on. So like I say, the first 14 months was foundation setting and to ensure these master plans and feasibility studies are put in place. I cannot sell, it's almost like a market woman or man, right? You can't go to the market and not be able to showcase products, right? And you also don't want to go to the market with products that perhaps are unripe. You want to sell apples, but you're plucking the apples when they're not ready to be plucked and then placed on your shelves to sell, right? It's the same way why we're thinking master plans and all of this. A lot of these things really ought to have been done upon when the state was created. What is a master plan for Oka? What is a master plan for industrial clusters? What is a master plan for residential areas? What is a master plan for transportation infrastructure? Where do buses go? Where do the kekes go even? Where do motorcycles go? What type of transportation do we want? Where does the airport go? How does the airport fit into the agenda? How does the rail fit in? How does it tie and connect industrial areas, residential areas, and commercial areas? So because this was not done then, right? And we have the opportunity now with a governor who understands economics, understands development planning. So essentially what he's done in my area, working with some ministries and agencies, is to put in the framework for what the future of Anambra will be. Where does this get us? By the end of January, say early February, we will have the master plan completed for the Anambra mixed-use industrial city. By the end of March, early April, worst case, we will have the Anambra master plan ready. We have just put out an expression of interest to design master plans and investment strategies for all our tourism sites. Obunike Caves, Agulu Lake, Anam beach, white beach sands, and Owerri Zukala waterfalls. There's Indian Anambra who are in Anambra State that wouldn't mind investing in a hotel in Obunike Caves. But they're not just going to go there and just start building the hotel. They want to see what the greater vision for Obunike Caves is. Where will kids be playing? How will you explore the caves? Who will be the guide to take them in? Will there be restaurants? Will there be this? Where do you want to position the hotel? Where is the land that the state has acquired around that area? This is what I mean by master planning. Because when that master plan exists, the same Indian Anambra that are building hotels in Aroma, the same Indian Anambra that are building Pactonia and all of this, who are based in Anambra State, will see those as compelling opportunities. So these master plan documents are not documents that we will keep in this office and only keep to ourselves. These are documents that once they are done, they were paid for with your own
taxpayers' money.
Yes, taxpayers' money. So essentially, they are public documents. We will put them out there, and people will critique it, they will analyze it, and it's on that basis that they will now come to ANSIPPA and say, I want to invest here and there.
Absolutely. Wow. And that's going to happen in a month plus.
Yes, so in a month plus, we'll get the Anambra Industrial City Master Plan. In 3 months, we'll get the Anambra Rail Master Plan. By April, early May, we should have the Tourism Master Plan, right, for 4 major sites. By the end of the year, we should have. No. So once these master plans are done,
over the course of the year, we'll be having master plans released,
and also engagement. So while we're doing this, we're also discussing with financiers. We're not waiting all the way till the end, and then we now hand it over to financiers, right? Then there's also 2 new cities in the works, right? You have the new Oka city. We've acquired over 3,000 hectares of land in Mamu through the Ministry of Lands. On that road from Amansi all the way to Ufuma, and a master plan is being done for a new capital.
Right? I hear that the road is true.
Yeah, it's done. It's pretty much done. About 17 kilometers. Then you have Onitsha, where the second Niger bridge hits Anambra. That land to the right, that is all swampy. right? There's a plan to do a reclamation there and build a new Onitsha. So
That's
the second these things start happening and you start seeing the document, private sector capital has direction and can then flow. And that private sector capital is domestic capital, the broader domestic capital of people around, people and institutions around the country, and also internationally.
Okay. Now it's time for us to take your questions. Just in case you haven't dropped them, this is the right time. Please put them in the comments section and let the MD tackle them. We have quite some. I'm sure that, okay, we'll read some of them. This one is from Nonso Ndomanya. As you would expect, there are risks that could affect your lofty strategic plans for 2024. Meanwhile, he says, insightful session and ANSIPPA, that's a commendation. For instance, security, but good as saying Mr. Governor is making good his manifesto promise in this regard. Another risk could be revenue volatility of subnational governments on the back of heightened economic uncertainty, and means your strategic plan in the short to medium term may not be fully achieved. And his question is, how does ANSIPPA intend to navigate this risk towards ensuring optimum strategic plan execution?
No, it's a very good point. A lot of the work we do, and a lot of these sort of projects that we're working on, where we are doing the feasibility studies and then the financing, we've already engaged investment banks, getting experts who are advising us along the way. We don't expect that these projects will require funding from the state's budget or the state's revenue. Okay. There are only a couple projects that we're working on that the state is funding. The Solution Fund City, the amusement park, the state is funding that. Right? But a number of the other projects, the 5-star hotel in ICC, we're structuring the funding for that. The governor is not afraid of borrowing. He has said it many times. In fact, from his first budget, from the first year when he came in, he did a revised budget and put about 100 billion debt provision. He's still not taking it. He's not taking it because he's not, the projects where he wants to invest the money are not at that stage. Okay. He's not going to take, he says it often, he's not just going to bedevil the state with so much debt that whoever comes after him will not be able to, he would not be able to operate, right? So what he's doing is matchmaking, essentially, saying, let me get these projects to the level where if I can get $100 billion naira facility from banks and it's at this interest rate, and I've done my studies that these opportunities will give me a return on investment of 25%. If the interest rate I can get from the bank is 12, 13%, you can see that those opportunities will be able to pay off the debt. Yes. So it's just matchmaking the right opportunity with the right blend of financing, right? That's one. Two, it's a lot of what we do is project preparation right now. So developing all these ideas, doing the studies, engaging with investors. So we're not at the point where we're spending billions, where we'll be needing billions of dollars or billions of naira. But still, it's about 1% of the total project cost you need to develop the projects to the stage where you're now ready to raise the balance of 95%, right? So what we've done over the years, over the last 1 year, is to build stronger networks. Okay. ANSIPPA was never known to African Development Bank. UNIDO never knew ANSIPPA. I hadn't done any work with ANSIPPA. Afro-Exim didn't really know ANSIPPA much. BOI, Bank of Industry, had never interfaced with ANSIPPA. The entire Lagos commercial corporate environment, all the investment banks, they don't know who ANSIPPA was. So all of these people now, once you ask them, if you engage with any of them on private sector investment promotion efforts, already ANSIPPA comes in at the top 1 or 2 on that list. So those are the people who have capital. And so it's important that we're constantly in their faces. We're constantly engaging such that when these projects are ready, they're the ones to provide solutions to finance them.
Okay, talking about providing solution, it's about getting the right capital, like you said, yes, at different stages. The 200 million plus from Afro-Exim Bank, there's $250 million before, and then one that might come later. Chi Agozie Onwumere Sunshine is asking if it's a loan or grant, and if it is a loan, how do we pay back as a state?
Yeah,
it seems too, humongous for anyone to even think.
Yes. I mean, what is $100 million is 120 billion naira.
So you see,
at black market rate. At official rate, $100 million is 100 billion naira. right? So $200 million is about 240, 250 billion naira. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot.
Huge,
How
right?
much is our budget?
Exactly. Our budget is 410 billion. So this is roughly around 55% of the state's budget.
Yes.
Exactly. But before I go into that, I want you and I to take a step back, close our eyes, imagine of the sort of Anambra you want, right? Then open your eyes and look at the Anambra of today and just guess. It's a small game I'm playing with you here.
Yeah.
Guess how much it requires annual spend on infrastructure to go from where we are today to where you would love us to be.
It's a lot. I can't even think about it.
In all honesty,
yes.
It's not billions. It's trillions of naira.
Yes.
It's trillions of naira, right? 1 trillion naira, official rate is $1 billion. 2 trillion naira is $2 billion, right? Just some of the rail lines from Lagos to Ibadan and what have you, if you cost the amount, it's probably a $5, $6, $7 billion dollar investment, right? So infrastructure is not cheap.
Sure.
But what infrastructure does for you is that it creates new economies.
Okay.
It boosts economic activity, which then allows government to tax, right? Tax that sort of economic activity, right? So essentially, the money that from the Afro-Exim is not a grant, because if it was a grant, I would not be a staff of Anambra State. And I'm sure many people who are watching will just all go and figure out how do we apply for $200 million of grants and then retire like Elon Musk or so, right? So it's not a grant. It's essentially a combination of equity and debt financing. But Afro-Exim is a trade bank. It's also a development finance institution, right? If you are getting $200 million from First Bank, the interest payments you'll be paying on that every year will be roughly around $50 to $60 million at the minimum. Wow. But from a DFI, a concessionary funding, maybe somewhere around 15 or 20.
Oh, that's...
So you need to now ensure you align that to projects that can create the right inflows and income to cover that. That's one. Okay. Two is, a lot of it will be debt, probably, and also investments, equity investments, either directly and indirectly. But even the debt will not be to Anambra State government, but it will be project financing, where you're lending and the collateral of what you're lending, the collateral of that loan is the cash flows that business will generate. Okay. So, if, for example, just for the people who may be watching and perhaps aren't students of finance, when you go to a bank now and they say you want a $5 million loan, they will tell you go and bring the title of your house as collateral to pay that loan. If a state government went to that bank, the bank will say, go and bring a guarantee that when you can't pay this loan, we will start deducting it from FAC. This type of funding doesn't have those sort of conditions. Okay. It is lending to you based on the future cash flows of the business you're investing in. Okay. Exactly. Okay. So it's project finance and not balance sheet finance into Anambra. So
Chiagozie, you see that it's quite safe, so do not worry. Don't worry. He also has another question. A lot of MOUs were signed last year during the Anambra Investment Summit and Invest. Some are yet to commence, like the Okasha. Okay, yes, that's been addressed. What's the next line of action after 1 year? Okay, we can say no meaningful development because, of course, we see that work is ongoing and work will actually start pretty soon in some of the sites mentioned. Yes. I'm sure that you may have dropped this message before those points were dropped. Secondly, you talk about the transformation of ANSIPPA to ADIC. I think that's also an area that a lot of people are wondering about. So please clarify.
Thank you very much, Chigozie. I think this, for me, is why I like these engagement sessions, because it allows you to engage with Indian Anambra and anybody who's interested in the Anambra story. Sure. And it gives you the opportunity to shed more light, right? I think we had addressed the questions on the MOU earlier, but maybe I don't know when he signed in, so I'll just be very quick on that. Then we go into the ADIC question. I think he talked about the MOUs that were signed. One of the MOUs was a master plan for the rail. That will be delivered in March, end of March. one of the MOUs was to design a master plan and outline business case for the Anambra Industrial City. That will also be delivered. It will be delivered at the start of February. It will also interest you that we've even gone a bit further. We were in Egypt and were able to have some sort of agreement, right, with the Afro-Exim, but also another company called Arise. Arise has built 14 industrial parks across Africa. They have one in Ogun State and another 12 in other African countries. The next location they'll be coming to is Anambra State.
Oh, interesting.
Arise is waiting they're waiting for the master plan of the industrial city and the feasibility study so that they can do their analysis.
When you say industrial park, please demystify that for those who may be struggling to understand.
Yes.
Yes.
An industrial park is, for anybody who's in Oka, do you know, what are the names of our estates again? Ngozika.
Yes.
You know Ngozika?
Yes, please. I
exactly. Do. That's a residential park.
Oh.
So if you replace the houses with industries, right?
Okay.
The green areas will stay also.
Okay.
Then if you replace, so essentially an industrial park is one that houses, is site and services, but for business, for factories.
A cluster of industries.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Interesting.
Exactly.
Wow.
So that's really, that Arise will be waiting for that document and then they'll take it on. He made specific comments to the Oka shopping mall. So I suspect that Chegozie is based in Oka and can't wait to be shopping at Market Square. And
it's likely going to be cheaper because it's Oka shopping mall.
You know, so and he knows the site. And from his question, it looks like he knows the site. Right. Essentially, it's not easy to structure businesses, right? This is something that was signed in September. And the question is, when are we starting, right? When I was in investment banking, I was opportune to work on the Ado Bayero shopping mall in Kano.
Okay.
It took us 3 years of planning, the designs, the documentation, raising the capital before we broke ground. 3 years, 3.5 years, right? To get that to take off. We signed with Sundry Markets in September.
Okay.
As a government, we already gave them their CFO and we gave them the designs that we originally had by December. By December 20th, they were at the site to do integrity test on the existing infrastructure.
Okay.
By end of January, they'll be doing the fencing while they're running their procurement process for their contractor. And by mid-February to late February, there'll be construction on the site. The target is I'm already thinking of a new sort of initiative in Anambra. This one was named by the social media public, right? They called this Christmas the homecoming, right? Oh. And if you're following the trends, people are saying this thing called the homecoming is even going to be bigger next year. So I'm saying by the second homecoming in December, the plan is to see if we can have the shopping mall up and we can launch it by then. That is really the target we've set for ourselves and our partners. And on our end, we're doing our bit. And it's a very serious investor. So I'm certain that he will honor every single milestone that we've agreed to.
Okay, briefly,
and the ADIC, yes. I think I'm certain that probably is it Sunshine? Okay,
yes,
it's Chegozie, but Sunshine,
yes.
Exactly.
That's his AKA.
AKA. so Sunshine, if I'm permitted to call you Sunshine. I'm certain he follows our newsletter because the questions he's asking are one where he's very informed and tracking. And so what have we done on ADIC? In last year, we were able to get the framework approved. We were able to get EXCO to also approve the framework. And we also worked with our lawyers and financial advisors to come up with a draft bill, right? We were to approve and send that draft bill to the House of Assembly. Just immediately after the summit. But let's just to show you the power of engagement. There was a panel, I think panel 2, that talked about mobilizing financing for infrastructure projects. And there was a gentleman there called Michael Nzewi, who's the CEO of Cardinal Stone, right? He made some thought-provoking contributions that made us go back to the drawing board.
Oh, nice.
And guess what? We've hired him as our consultant. We brought him on board as the financial advisor.
That says a lot about the character of the present administration.
That's it. This is how the governor is. he doesn't know it all, right? He's just doing his best. His team is doing their best. So when we were talking about it, he said, yes, I've seen it. And remember, I continue to remind people who work in government are administrators. We don't have the best ideas. We don't have all the resources. We just regulate sectors where you have people who have the resources, who are at the forefront of transformation and disruption in those sectors. So this guy is a financial expert who happens to also be from Newi and running one of the top investment banks in Nigeria today. Wow. And he's saying, well, he has other ideas how this can work. And we're like, wow, let's hear more of that. So where we are now is that we've worked with him and also the Africa Finance Corporation to rejig that framework.
Okay.
Right? And at our Exco retreat last weekend, it's been put as something we want to achieve in Q1. Okay. Let's at least get that. Let's approve that framework, the revised framework, and get that law and push it into the House of Assembly. Okay. While we do that, we're not just going to be waiting. Because the whole idea of the transformation from ANSIPPA to ADIC is one where we will also pull in all the different investments and assets that the state has, okay, and optimize those assets while using those assets as an opportunity to raise more capital for other projects we're doing. Okay. So while it's in the House of Assembly, we'll then be doing that process of pulling the assets together, or trying to optimize them, taking a strategic view on the assets. I'll give you an example. It's a very small snippet,
okay. I hope that we can we run beyond the stipulated time? I don't know. Okay.
Says a little bit. Yeah,
please.
So I'll just say the last point.
Okay.
This is just a snippet of what asset optimization means. Everybody knows we have Agulu Lake Hotel. Some of you may call it Golden Tulip. It's a nice hotel. It's a beautiful resort. But I'm sure in recent times you've walked in there and you felt it could be a bit better, right? Okay. So asset optimization, where we're working with our consultants, is one where in the next maybe 6 months, wouldn't you like a Portia by Marriott to be managing that hotel?
Why not?
Exactly. Wouldn't you like the Bush Bar area, the tennis courts to be well developed? Sure. Wouldn't you like the 27 hectares on the adjoining land to also have, some lake view where you can sit and watch the crocodiles? That's essentially
go for picnics.
Exactly. So that's essentially what we're trying to do. So while the draft bill is in the House and they're going through their processes, we'll be doing all these things simultaneously.
Okay.
On asset by asset.
Wow. I'm going to take the next questions together and then you can address them somewhat together. We have this one, by Henry Arinze. And he says, you're doing a great job, Mr. Mark, within a short period of time. I followed up ANSIPPA Summit last year. That's the Uninvest. And he says it's awesome in capital letters. We hope to expect more on foreign partnerships for the Anambra this year. Okay. And this is from Adobe Abaza. As she says, accountability is key to the success of every administration. Is there a plan to showcase this while these fines are dispensed? I'm trying to make sense of that, I believe.
Funds.
Yes. While these funds are dispensed, is there a plan to showcase, how the funds are being channeled? And I think you will address that. The Anambra State government has a great agenda to industrialize and harness the opportunities in the state. One threat to infrastructure investment is insecurity. Are there concrete implementable roadmaps to tackle issues relating to security, arrest, by the prescribed group? That's from Akin from CNBC Africa. Thank you so much, Akin. Of course, you get your question shortly. Ebukonye Kwelo is asking, he's saying, good job, Mr. Mark, and well done, Ife. Thank you so much, Ebuka. I want to know what ANSIPPA is doing to enhance the local capacity to meet advanced standards. Also, are there plans to retain good talents in the state? This is considering that human capital is critical to ANSIPPA's vision. I believe Ebuka. Okay, Ebuka, yes, you've addressed some of this,
I've seen that a few. Yeah, but I'll start with, I think, Adobe, who's talked about accountability in the success of every administration, and is there a plan to showcase how the funds are being dispersed? So before the second part of the question, I think, Adobe, I don't know if you're signed up to our newsletter. Okay. Please go into Google, search ANSIPPA Substack, Substack. When you search it, you'll see our own sort of Substack page. If you're on LinkedIn, look up our page and also subscribe to our newsletter. One of the reasons why we set that up was we felt that credibility and the credibility was somewhat low or missing when we first started the organization, when we first started my time at the organization. So we did that to get people to follow through with what we're doing on a month-by-month basis, showcasing every meeting we're having, how those meetings are crystallizing into opportunities, how those opportunities are crystallizing into projects, how those projects are crystallizing into partnerships. That's why we set that up, right? So that's for all our activities. Now, on the funds being disbursed, right? We have a budget. The budget is an open document for the state. And so anywhere the state is investing, quite often after Exco, the approvals of projects are usually released by the Chief Press Secretary. Take for an example, and I'm speaking to projects that we are funding ourselves, right?
As a state.
As a state. The Solution Fund City is being funded by Anambra State government. Okay. The contract sum is there for everyone to know. When the contracts were awarded, we run a very, very transparent procurement system. You will not see a lot of the contractors you see elsewhere in Anambra State, because Anambra is one of those places where we try to stretch the dollar to achieve quite a lot, right? So at the Solution Fund City, the people who are building the amusement park and the water park, they're from ANSIPPA. Okay. If you've been to Park Vega in Abo, it's the same people.
Oh, the water park, interesting.
Anambra State government did not say, favor, come, set up a company. Though this park is going to cost 4 billion, we're going to give you the contract at 8 billion so that you can go and give Park Vega 4 billion to deliver the park, and you bring another 4 billion for Ifia and Augusta to share. That is not done here. So we are going to call specialists and engaging them directly to deliver, and still making it competitive. On that case specifically, the governor insisted that I know that you guys have the expertise, but I want to open it to companies in Turkey, open it to companies in China, and let's see how competitive you can come out. And they still won, right? So that's really how we do when it comes to the funds that the state is. Now, on the funds that we are attracting, and these funds are being invested into projects, until those projects, when we say it's invested into projects, the money is invested into limited liability companies. Okay. Anambra in some cases might own a 5% or a 10% stake. The 80-90% that is owned by the private sector, it is a private company, limited liability. It's not a public limited company, right? So until it becomes a PLC, then they are mandated to disclose their books, disclose their performance. But when it remains private, as Anambra State government and ANSIPPA that owns the 10%, we can then tell the world, for our 10%, this is what we have, this is the dividends we have, and what have you. We have no control over what the private sector chooses to disclose on their end. So just to guide that, that's number 2. Number 3 is around, I think, talent, right? Is it Ebuka? Yes. I think, Ebuka, thank you, and Ebuka, no, Aki. I think I remember Aki, CNBC. Something around security and IPOB and
implementable roadmaps to tackle issues, security unrest.
Yes. I think Aki, I know him and he knows me and he follows what we're doing. So thank you for joining in. Aki, you will recall that in March 2022, when the governor came in, I think about 8 local governments or 9.
Yes, we're under siege.
Under siege, literally. Local government chairmen could not go to their offices. People could not come back. People could not come back to the state. There was a lot of criticism at the beginning that why after 2 months or 3 months or 4 months has it not been fixed? Quite often, you get faster and quicker impact, right, from ad hoc arrangements. But you get lasting and sustainable solutions from systems that take time to be designed and frameworks that you put in place. In that space of time, not only did we come up with a framework where the government works closely with the federal government security agencies to police our local governments. However, we've also created and amplified and supported the act of community policing. So you would hear quite a lot of communities, because all insecurity, all intelligence, all crime is local.
Absolutely.
Right? Yes. So it is not someone from Lagos or someone from Abuja or someone from Oka that will tell you what is going on in Onitsha.
It's not someone unknown.
Yes, it's not someone unknown. So this whole UGM, when you deconstruct it, it is someone within. Yes. So communities came back and took back their state, their communities. And I would have you know that in that time, out of the 179 communities, there's only one local government, right? And maybe 4 communities or so in that local government where you, every now and then, maybe every 2 months or so, you hear the odd attack, right? And that in itself is being addressed simply because that local government is a border local government. It borders us and another state. So there's a lot of work in terms of having a joint action and strategy to address that, right? But the most sustainable way, and this would help answer Ebuka's question, which is, how do you retain talent?
Yes, good talents.
How do you retain talent? And how do you address insecurity? Or it's like an incestuous sort of dynamic where job creation and economic prosperity typically addresses these two things. And if the layouts, the new initiatives, the foundation setting that we are doing, once that takes off, right, I can assure you, in the Anambra, these projects will not find all the talent that it needs in this market. So there will be need for us to import, but while we import, we would then have those projects as opportunities for the kids who are then coming out of the universities to then start to align, right? That's why this stakeholder engagement is very important. That's why even on the Ease of Doing Business Council this year, we're bringing on board 1 or 2 representation from the universities.
Okay.
They need to start they need to start understanding where we are going with the economy, so that they know the changes to make to the syllabus, to ensure they're creating talent that will fit in. This is really it, right? So that's really what we're trying to do.
And I think you're also thinking of reversing the Japa syndrome, because now if jobs are created here, why would anyone go outside the country to, so people will find reason to stay back.
If there's even people already, because of the age of remote jobs, we have people who are working in the US but are based in Anambra now, right? So a lot of what you would see the Solution Innovation District do, they've trained, I think, about 40,000 young people in digital skills. They intend to amplify that. They intend to amplify that later this year. And essentially is to give those kids skills that are exportable, but they can stay here. Remember I said, the opportunity, the advantage of having weaker exchange rates, right, is such that if you are on a job that paid you $500 on a virtual platform, why would you want to Japan?
No, please. No, please.
You won't be able to pay for accommodation in the US. You won't be able to pay for accommodation in the UK. But you'll be able to live very well in Anambra.
And then you can go to Oka shopping mall to shop. You can go to Solution Fund, to have all the fun.
So now, essentially what you're saying is you're walking with me through this path of transforming Anambra from a departure lounge to a destination. That's it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. I think we have another question. We have more. Once you need me to stop, please let me know. Osa Victor Obayabana says the stage through your organization has beautiful investment strategies to turn Anambra from where it is to where it ought to be. But substance abuse among youths who will form the core workforce for this project and insecurity issues are a huge threat. What does the state hope to do to mitigate this? I think you addressed a bit of that, but it's also important to say more. From Brown Ebubechuku, you have spoken so much about the development of Oka. That's 2.0, Onitsha 2.0, the new cities, right? What are the plans of your agency as regards the industrial base of the state, which is in Nnewi? The governor in 2022 paid a visit to the National Automotive Design and Development Council, NADDC, on the issue of Nnewi Industrial Park project situated at Umubi, Akwihe Dioga, which is projected to generate 25,000 direct jobs, 10,000 SMEs and over 100,000 indirect jobs. Since then, nothing has been heard. Are there any plans by your agency in that direction? Brown wants to know. Okay.
So I think the first question is Victor on substance abuse, I think, right?
The youth, yes.
So there's a huge agenda for youth. This, in my view, and I'm really fortunate to have been part of the governor's team even before he came on board. Many don't know that he was also the chairman of the Anambra Vision 2070 committee.
Okay.
So
Yes.
the 50-year plan that we have, his manifesto is really like the foundational document for that 50-year plan.
Okay, to deploy the Vision 2070.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a connection.
Okay, yes.
The framework through which his manifesto is underpinned is the exact same framework. If you pick up the 50-year plan and you pick up a copy of his manifesto, you will see the first pillar is security, law and order. The second pillar is economic transformation and infrastructure. The third is social agenda. The fourth is values, governance, and then the last is environment. It's the same thing, right? And under there's a huge plan for youth. There's the One Youth Two Skill, very ambitious program, which about 4 billion naira was invested last year.
Yes.
A lot of young people who ordinarily would have been unemployed. We're giving skills. We're also giving mentorship. And today they have businesses. The Anambra State Small Business Agency is supporting the work they are doing and helping them scale up. But also there's the delinquent youth and some of them who are perhaps having issues. I think this is something that was discussed extensively at the EXCO retreat.
Okay.
There will be slight changes in terms of introduction of certain correctional facilities, certain programs to help young people. Drug abuse was discussed extensively. So there's a lot of work done with this UN agency that typically, I think UNDOC or so, that typically works and intervenes in this area. It's not an area I'm an expert on, but I'm just sort of giving feedback on what I've heard and how that fits into addressing the problem. The other point was from on the automotive industrial park, right?
Yes.
Asked by Obaibina, right?
Yes, Obaibina.
Yes, Mr. or Mrs. Obaibina. Sorry about that. I think so. What has happened there is that there's a bit of history with that, right? The same consultants who are actually doing the Anambra Industrial City Master Plan helped Anambra State and the NADDC to do the Newi Automotive Industrial City Industrial Master Plan, Industrial Park, right?
Yes.
Proposed. And it was done in 2017, 2018. The next step was, how do we fund? This is, in my honest feedback, in my honest view, this is what happens when sometimes you sit around the table with the federal government. They have so many priorities, so many. But because they sort of helped conceptualize that, every time the state wanted to push, they had their own level of bureaucracies and processes that were holding the project back. So when we engaged Mahindra and Artilia to design a master plan for industrial city, for us, Newi feeds into what we call the Anambra South, which is really our view is that that's the industrial base.
Okay.
But the land for the automotive park was 80 hectares. 4 major factories at 10 to 15 hectares each will take up 70, 90% of that land. Then the balance maybe is used for road infrastructure. Any of the parks you see, major industrial parks, they probably are on 10,000 hectares, 5,000 hectares, but phase 1 can be 200 hectares. Okay. So the land requirement in and around Newi and Akuyede was not sufficient for that. So what we've done is to move the master plan in there to the industrial city. The industrial city is going to have a number of components. It's going to have the automotive component. It's going to have the pharmaceutical component. It's going to have the general industrial component, right? And then it will also have leisure, tourism, and supporting transportation infrastructure. Even in another 5-10 years, you might even have another airport there, right?
Okay.
The city of London has 5 airports, right? So, but it all depends. But everything now is at ensuring that we capture all of these initiatives and then start to commence the development. We have 2 automakers in the state already, Innocent and Oma Motors. While we're in Egypt, about 2-3 automakers introduced to us by Alpha Exim want to also come, but they want to land somewhere else. And we're saying just hold on for about 3, 4, 5 months because we want them to act as anchors for the Anambra Industrial City. So the distance between the Anambra Industrial City land, which is between Oboja, about 8 communities contributing 4,000 hectares, is not more than 7-10 minutes or so from Newi. You know, that corridor. So it's all within the same vicinity.
Okay.
And that's so going forward, our view is that the Newi sort of Ekolobia, Uga, Orumba axis will become the heavy industrial base, right? The Oka becomes the residential, commercial. Then the Onitsha will be purely commercial, warehouses, logistics, residential, financial districts, etc. That's how we're looking at the state.
Okay, thank you so much. We can't take any more questions at this point. We want to thank you so much. On YouTube, we'll take this one, but quickly now, with respect to prospects, what are the top 3 areas of infrastructure which ANSIPPA and generally the Anambra State government will focus on this year?
This year?
2024.
So let's start with the Anambra State government.
Okay.
Because there are 2 types of infrastructure. I tried to explain this. There's infrastructure that, the bread and butter infrastructure,
yes.
Connecting roads, rehabilitating roads,
low-hanging birds.
Yeah. There was already a road constructed 10 years ago. Let's go and repatch it or relay the asphalt, put in stone base, do that, make it motorable, dualization of short roads. So by the governor's second term in office, second year in office, the target that the Ministry of Works has set is that we will see about 150 to 170 kilometers of roads completed, right? So I'm guessing that there may be some commissioning done around that, right? Then obviously there's water infrastructure that the state is focusing on. We approved, the EXCO approved about 2 weeks ago, rehabilitation of the Onitsha water scheme, the Oka water scheme, and I think one in the north, right, and the south of the state, around Ekolobia axis. The plan is to have one of those functional later this year, and then we'll think about concessioning. So there's all those, the bread and butter infrastructure that the state government is doing. There's the ones that we're doing that have involvement of the private sector. Okay. So when I'm ranking it in terms of scale of preference, you have industrial infrastructure, you have tourism infrastructure, and then you have, obviously, there's certain roads that we're trying to structure financing for and to see if it can be done on PPP, either with taxes or what have you. So we want to see a situation where we have the Anambra Industrial City. We want to go in with the dual carriage road, opening up that city so that people and investors can now start taking position. That's a priority of this year. Second priority of the year is the Oka 2.0. Once the master plan is done, we also want to go in with a dual carriage road that goes in, and then people can see the plan and then come and either purchase land and then start building out new economic opportunities. And lastly, for the rail, I think the target for this year is to finish the master plan and then go ahead to do the detailed designs of the rail and identify what is the first node that we should be looking at, so that we can then start tidying up the financing for that over the next 2 years for rail. So that's it in terms of a scale of preference.
One thing I know about ANSIPPA is that the conversation doesn't stop.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, so this engagement session may end in just a few minutes, but you can still drop your contributions and comments and feedback and advice as well on any of the social media platforms where ANSIPPA is present. ANSIPPA is present on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, and you can reach out and also read Anambra Insights as well, so that when your question is addressed, of course, I believe that there will be responses from those. Just in case you send a message, there will be a response. So please take advantage of that opportunity. I want to thank you, Mr. Mark Okoye, the MD CEO of ANSIPPA, for always engaging the transparency that you embody. Thank you so much for always bringing us up to speed on what's going on in ANSIPPA. And we can't wait for the next time, to have this conversation and, of course, have a robust session as well. Special thanks to everyone who tuned in, everyone who's watching. Thank you so much, media people. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for staying with us even when we had to overshoot for a bit. Thank you for your patience. And to everyone who works behind the scene, Augusta, Nadi, and the crew members behind the camera, thank you so much, our technical crew, for making this happen. And the team at ANSIPPA as well. The leadership of the governor of Anambra State is what made this session possible. So thank you so much, Professor Charles Chukwuma-Soludo, for the leadership you provided that has also given ANSIPPA this mandate to run with. My name is Ife Aronwo-Okafor, and I would let Mr. Mark Okoye drop just one word. I mean, anything you want people to remember from this session and anything that they need to start doing, especially in the Anambra, who are thinking, oh, what can I do now? What can I do? What's that quick word you want them to remember?
We can only truly be respected anywhere else in the world when we have a prosperous and livable homeland. And to achieve that, we need to work hand in hand. The economic opportunities, please come back, bring your investments. And this is to the diaspora, this is to the private sector, this is to institutions around the world. We're open for business, we're ready to work with you. And we have a very strong team and a very good leader in Governor Soludo, and he's driving us every day to achieve everything we need to do. He says he has a tenure with a deadline, right?
Yes.
A vision with a deadline. So essentially, we want to see Anambra transform like yesterday, and we can only do it with the partnership of yourselves, your networks, your alliances, and your affiliations. Thank you, and God bless.
There you have it, 2024, the partnerships, progress, and prospect for Anambra State. Be the best, and of course, think home. Homecoming is what we must all do at a certain time, and the time is now. I am Ife Aronwo-Okafor. Thank you so much. Have a good night.